My beloved brothers and sisters, today I want to remind myself and you about a habit many of us take lightly, yet it has a deep impact on our faith, our productivity, and the barakah in our lives. That is sleeping immediately after Fajr. Many of us, after praying Fajr, we rush back to our beds. We think just 10 minutes more, and that 10 minutes becomes hours. But what do we lose? We lose the very time the Prophet made dua for blessings in. He said, "Oh Allah, bless my Ummah in their early mornings." The Tirmidhi, this shows us that the morning is not just a routine time. It is a time loaded with barakah, with opportunities, with divine blessings. One of the most overlooked treasures in Islam is the barakah, the divine blessing that Allah places in the early morning hours. The Prophet Muhammad made a special dua for his Ummah, saying, "Oh Allah, bless my nation in their early mornings." Tirmidhi. This single supplication is enough to show us how valuable those hours are. Yet, sadly, many of us neglect them by returning to sleep immediately after Fajr, missing out on both worldly success and spiritual elevation. Barakah is not like material wealth, cannot be measured in numbers or quantities. Rather, it is the unseen blessing that makes what you have, whether time, wealth, health, or knowledge, more fruitful and impactful. A person who lives with barakah may achieve in 1 hour what others cannot achieve in an entire day. Barakah brings ease, clarity, and productivity into life. One of the greatest sources of this blessing is to begin the day with Fajr prayer and then remain awake, engaging in worship, reflection, learning, or beneficial work. The morning after Fajr is a sacred time filled with tranquility. The Kurd describes the dawn prayer as being witnessed, Surah Al-Isra 1978. Scholars explain that it is witnessed by the angels of the night and the angels of the day, both present at this unique time. Imagine, at the very start of your day, you are under the gaze of angels who testify to your worship. This is not a time to be wasted in heedlessness or sleep, but a golden opportunity to connect with Allah, to recite Quran, and to begin the day with remembrance. When a person chooses to sleep after Fajr without necessity, they unknowingly deprive themselves of this treasure. They lose the clarity of mind that comes in the morning, the stillness that makes worship sweeter, and the chance to begin their day under Allah's special blessing. They also miss the worldly benefits. Science today proves that mornings are the most productive hours of the day. When the mind is sharp, energy levels are high, and creativity flows. Islam had already emphasized this centuries ago. Think about the companions of the Prophet. They would rarely return to sleep after Fajr. Instead, they would engage in Dhikr, Quran recitation, seeking knowledge, or begin their day's work. This is why they achieved so much in such little time. They lived with the barakah of mornings. Compare that with our habits today: oversleeping, missing productivity, starting the day late, and constantly feeling rushed. Could it be that the absence of barakah in our lives is connected to our neglect of the sunnah of valuing mornings? Of course, Islam is a balanced religion. If a person is extremely tired, sick, or has a genuine need to rest after Fajr, there is no sin upon them. But the general advice of the Prophet and the way of the companions was to embrace the morning and not waste it in sleep. Even a short nap later in the day, such as the Qailul midday rest, is more aligned with the sunnah than sleeping after Fajr. The hidden secret is this: the morning is like fertile soil. If you plant seeds of worship, knowledge, or effort in it, they grow with blessing throughout the day. But if you neglect it, you begin your day with emptiness, and that emptiness carries on. So, my brothers and sisters, the next time you feel tempted to go back to bed after Fajr, remind yourself, this is the time when Allah has placed barakah. Stay awake a little longer, engage in dhikr, read Quran, or plan your day with good intentions. You will soon feel the difference. Your time will stretch, your heart will feel lighter, and your life will carry blessings that cannot be explained but only experienced. Islam is a way of life that emphasizes balance, discipline, and purposeful living. One of the greatest gifts of the faith is the daily rhythm of Salah's prayer. Each prayer is like a checkpoint, reminding the believer of Allah's presence and training the soul in self-control. The Fajr prayer in particular is a test of discipline. Waking up before sunrise, leaving the comfort of sleep, standing before Allah requires both effort and sincerity. It is a powerful training of the soul to prefer Allah over desires. But when a person immediately returns to sleep after Fajr out of laziness and habit, not necessity, this discipline slowly weakens and spiritual awareness begins to fade. The Prophet said, Shaitan ties 3 knots at the back of the head of any one of you when he is asleep. He strikes each knot saying, you have a long night, so sleep. If he wakes up and remembers Allah, 1 knot is undone. If he performs ablution, the 2nd knot is undone. And if he prays, the 3rd knot is undone. Then he gets up in the morning energetic and with a good heart. Otherwise, he gets up lazy and with a bad heart, Sabukari Muslim. This hadith is very profound. It shows that Fajr prayer is not only about fulfilling an obligation, but also about beginning the day with strength and vitality. By remembering Allah, making wudu, and performing Fajr, a believer untees the shackles of shaitan. But what happens if, right after undoing those knots, a person simply goes back to deep sleep? They fall back into a state of laziness, undoing the discipline that Fajr instilled in them. Instead of walking into the day with a heart full of light, they carry the heaviness of heedlessness. The early morning hours are spiritually rich. The Prophet said, the 2 rakahs before Fajr are better than the world and all that it contains. It's a Muslim. If just the Sunnah prayer of Fajr has such immense value, how much more valuable are the hours that follow, filled with Qur'an, Dhikr and purposeful work? When someone abandons this treasure and chooses sleep instead, they not only waste precious time, but also weaken their inner discipline, the very discipline that protects the soul from falling into sins during the day. Spiritual awareness, taqwa, is built through consistency. The Quran describes the believers as those who were constant in their prayer. Surah Al-Ma'arij 7:23. Constancy requires a structured routine. Being awake when others are heedless. Being disciplined when the nafs desires comfort. When a person gives in to laziness right after Fajr, they begin the day by prioritizing desire over discipline. Over time, this creates a habit of delay, procrastination, and spiritual dullness. Even from a worldly perspective, mornings are when the mind is sharpest and the heart is most at peace. Scientists today tell us that productivity, learning, and creativity peak in the early hours. But Islam had already taught this. The Prophet prayed for Barakah in the mornings of his Ummah. That blessing is not only material, but also spiritual. Clarity of thought, strength in worship, and purity of heart. Losing this time to sleep is like throwing away the keys to a day of blessing. Of course, Islam is merciful. If someone truly needs rest because of illness, long night work, or travel, sleeping after Fajr is not sinful. But when it becomes a careless habit, it points to a deeper issue, a weakening of spiritual alertness. The companions of the Prophet would fill the time after Fajr with Dhikr, Quran, or work. They valued discipline because they understood that spiritual success is built on small, consistent habits. My brothers and sisters, reflect on this. Shaitan loves laziness. He whispers, just a little more sleep, you deserve it. But Allah loves effort, even small. Each time you fight the urge to go back to bed after Fajr, you are training your soul. Each time you use the morning for Quran, remembrance, or planning your day, you are strengthening your discipline. This discipline protects you throughout your life, in prayer, in resisting temptation, in focusing on purpose. So do not let the gift of Fajr end with prayer alone. Carry its light into the morning. Build habits of worship, reflection, and productive work in those hours. In doing so, you protect your heart from laziness and maintain a strong spiritual awareness. This is the hidden wisdom of valuing mornings. It is not just about time, but about building a heart that is awake, a soul that is disciplined, and a life that is guided by the remembrance of Allah. The life of a believer is shaped by the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad who taught us not only how to worship, but also how to live every moment with purpose. Among the many lessons from his life, one of the most overlooked is the use of the morning hours after Fajr. The Prophet valued these hours immensely and prayed for Barakah, blessing in them. He said, "O Allah, bless my nation in the early mornings." Tirmidhi. This shows that the morning is not simply a time to pass in sleep, but a divine opportunity to build faith, knowledge, and productivity. When people ignore this sunnah and waste these hours, they lose out on blessings both in this world and the hereafter. The companions of the Prophet understood this well. They would rarely go back to bed after Fajr. Instead, they would stay in the mosque engaged in decorous remembrance of Allah, Quran recitation, or listening to knowledge being shared, or return home to spend time with family in worship, or begin their day's work early. This habit brought success in their worldly affairs and raised their ranks spiritually. It was common to see markets active early in the morning, with trade and livelihood being sought in the blessed hours after Fajr. Contrast this with our modern lifestyle, where people sleep until late, waste the freshness of the morning, and then complain of stress and lack of time. The Sunnah teaches us that mornings are a sacred gift. Allah swears by the morning brightness in the Quran, by the morning brightness and by the night when it grows still. So Surah Duha 93:1-2, the morning carries light, calmness, and clarity. It is the time when the angels record the worship of believers who rise early. Ignoring this Sunnah means ignoring an entire portion of the day that Allah has made special. Moreover, the Prophet and his companions demonstrated practical ways to use the morning. After Fajr, they would sit in circles of knowledge, recite Quran, or engage in dua until the sun rose. The Prophet said, whoever prays Fajr in congregation, then sits remembering Allah until the sun rises, then prays 2 rakahs, will have the reward of Hajj and Umrah. Complete. Tirmidhi. Look at the immense reward attached to valuing those hours. Yet many of us ignore them by rushing back to sleep, unaware that such treasures are passing us by. Beyond worship, the Sunnah also encourages productivity. Starting work early brings barakah in earnings. Farmers, traders, and students who begin their task after Fajr often achieve more with less effort. The Prophet encouraged his companions to start journeys and important tasks in the early hours, showing that mornings are not only spiritually rewarding but also practically beneficial. Ignoring this sunnah leads to wasted potential. Long nights of entertainment and late mornings of laziness have become common habits, leaving us unproductive and spiritually drained. Of course, Islam is balanced, rest is necessary, and a short nap kailula in the midday is from the sunnah. But the neglect we see today is not about genuine rest. It is about reversing the natural rhythm Allah created. Nights are for rest and mornings for activity. When this balance is ignored, people lose spiritual strength, fall into laziness, and miss the blessings written in those early hours. My brothers and sisters, the hidden wisdom of the sunnah is that every habit has both worldly and spiritual benefits. When you ignore the sunnah of utilizing mornings, you lose the reward of worship, the barakah in your day, and the discipline that strengthens your faith. But when you revive this sunnah, even with small steps like reciting Quran, making dua, or beginning your work after Fajr, you align yourself with a prophetic way of living. So let us not underestimate the mornings. They are not ordinary hours. They are hours filled with light, watched by angels, blessed by the Prophet's dua, and full of opportunities for both dunya and akhirah. The believer who values them walks with barakah in his life, while the one who ignores them lives with emptiness and regret. Choose wisely, for the sunnah is not just tradition, it is the path to success in both worlds.